This is Dune Talk, a DuneNewsNet.com production. Join us now for the latest Dune news, reactions, and lively discussions.
Welcome back to the next episode of Dune Talk. Happy to have you here again. For this episode, we're going to be discussing the IMAX exclusive look at Dune that took place on July 21st. Really exciting time. It's all happening now, like waves of Dune content just flowing in this week. Real celebration. So this is Marcus speaking. So I'm here today with Simon.
Hey guys.
And Garin.
Hello.
And Mark.
Hi.
So today we're going to be discussing one big piece of movie news, which is the Dune IMAX event, and we'll potentially get into the trailer as well later on. So moving on to movie news.
Dune movie news.
So yesterday, all four of us got the opportunity to see the IMAX Presents exclusive look at Dune event in various cities across the United States and United Kingdom. So it was definitely a special event. I'll start with you, Simon. So we were there at the Bellevue location together. Like, what was your experience of the event? Like getting there, or like the event itself?
So Bellevue is about a 2-hour drive from where I live. I live in Olympia in Washington, and like I was telling you guys, and Marcos knows this, I was the first one there, super excited. At first, the line, I was like, okay, there's no one here. A little bit after, there was one guy, and all of a sudden, it became 6. It became 30. And you said there was at least 250 people, huh? You think in our theater?
Yeah, I think it could have been more than that. Like it was, 15-row theater, like 30 people per row. So yeah, it's pretty full.
Yeah, I can't express how happy and grateful I am. I got to see it on the IMAX screen and also the event, but I'll let the other boys talk about how overall their experience.
Yeah, let's go over to you, Garin, like what one time zone ahead?
Yeah, so here in Mountain Time Zone in Utah, I was fortunate to only be about 20 minutes away from the theater. So I grabbed my 15-year-old son and we headed over, and I got a little bit worried because I heard that they were going to obviously oversell, the theater. And I, for a lot of reasons, I wanted to make sure I was there. So we actually got there about an hour and a half early, and they actually walked up and I got an assigned seat, which I didn't anticipate. So I was really thrilled about that because I was able to choose sort of the perfect location in an IMAX theater, which is something I really love to do. And then my son and I went and, grabbed a burger at Five Guys and then headed back over. But when we headed back over at 6:30, the place was packed. I mean, there was a line all the way down throughout the inside of the theater. I could just see, who were the Dune fans and who were just going to see other movies. And I was really excited because I was nervous that when I went there the first time and it was just sort of me alone with my son getting these tickets, I thought, wow, this could go one of two ways. And I was thrilled. I mean, people were excited, standing in line, talking about it, speculating about it, talking about cast. It was a great experience. And I know we'll get into this, but I now fully understand why Denis wants us to see this on an IMAX screen. At first I thought, is this just a sort of marketing gimmick or something for IMAX? But my goodness, he made this film for that complete sensory experience that you get on an IMAX screen. So I just am so excited.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, for us, when we were in Bellevue, like we were in there at the beginning, and like at first the movie theater was half full, but we kept seeing like people coming in until like 5 minutes before. I don't know if they actually turned people away, but like at the end it was a full theater, and yeah, it was like a special feeling to like be there in like Frank Herbert's home state and like seeing the first look preview. Like yeah, it was definitely a special feeling. So and Mark, so you were way ahead of us. Like fortunate to be in the UK BST time zone. So how was your experience getting to the event and the event itself?
Yeah, so in the UK there was only one IMAX theatre in the whole of the UK showing it, which was down in London, which is about 2.5 hours train journey for me. So I bit the bullet and got the train down. Because it was Cineworld Unlimited membership tickets, it meant it was assigned seating. It wasn't the sort of lottery almost in the States, but it did mean that the potential audience was greatly limited because you had to be living near London and have one of these very expensive unlimited memberships. So unfortunately, it wasn't at capacity, the theatre. It was busy and it was lots of people, even with the social distancing, but there were empty seats, which was disappointing to see. But I went down and I managed to get a ticket direct from Warner Brothers. I sent a begging letter to them. And then I also managed to win two tickets in the competition that Warner Brothers had on Twitter. So I gave those away to some fellow Dune fans, which I met for the first time down there. We were all wearing Dune t-shirts, so it was very easy to spot each other. But just following on from what Garin said about IMAX, absolutely needs to be seen in IMAX, and I think I might buy some shares in IMAX because yeah, this film is going to be such a success, and it's going to drive people to IMAX, I'm sure.
Yeah. And when you say the social distancing, like, was there like a specific capacity that the theaters are currently in the UK?
I'm not too sure, but I think what they were doing is, if you got a pair of tickets, then there were 2 seats together, and then there was an empty seat or 2 empty seats, and then the next group of people or person, and then a couple of empty seats, and so on. So people were well spread out.
Got it.
Yeah,
but it was a huge theatre.
We had no social distance whatsoever.
Yeah, we had done.
I mean, I was masked. It made me feel more like I was on a racket, especially on the IMAX. I do agree with you that, first of all, when I first heard the IMAX, then I was like, okay, it's a gimmick. Try and get people to come back to the theater, But no, you're right. It's designed to be seen on a big screen, IMAX. Even if you have a beautiful home theater at home, go see it at least once on IMAX, people, because then you can go home and watch it as much as you want on HBO Max. Sorry, Mark. I know you guys don't have HBO Max in England.
I might find a way to watch it. I don't know.
There's ways. I'm just saying. But it is something that made me go, yes, this is what I want. I want the big epic. And I always say it should be the big epic 70 millimeter Lawrence of Arabia experience, because that's what Dune is. It's a big epic picture. And the IMAX poster that they were giving away, and Marcus and me will tease about how some people can get a poster if they weren't there. I think expresses it perfectly. You see a little Paul there in a giant planet, and that's what it felt like. We were just little people experiencing a big epic production.
Yeah, to add to that, Simon, I think there's something about an IMAX screen, and I'm not being paid by IMAX to say this, but just the visceral bass and the speakers and the sound system in that theater, it just takes you out of your reality. It just transports you to another place. And then the size of that screen gives you no option. It's all you can see in front of you, right? So I just thought it was a perfect combination of being able to give a otherworldly storytelling experience, but I really felt like I was not on the earth anymore. I felt like I was somewhere else. And to me, that was a win.
Yeah, I mean, so my girlfriend came along because she's the one that drives and I don't drive. I got no shame. And she was super intrigued. by it. She's like, I was on the edge of my seat, and we'll talk more about what we saw, but she's like, the sound design, and the score and everything. She's like, okay, I'm sold. Like, now I want to know what this is all about.
Yeah, and part of it, I think, for me was this is probably the first time I had been back in a cinema since, I think 17 months, literally. Yeah, and I think even though I was like, taking notes at the same time, I just felt like so like engrossed in everything that was happening. It was like really an emotional experience, just like being there and like seeing this the first 10 minutes of like this film that I've been waiting for all this time, and like seeing like the epic events on screen. It was it was definitely left a huge impression on me. Maybe going back to you, Mark, like what was your overall impression of the content that you saw during the event?
Yeah, stunning, blown away by it. Just the scale of it. I don't know if we talk about it now or later, but just the size of some of the ships on there that overflow the huge IMAX screen, and the scale, unbelievable. But yeah, it was like, trying to concentrate on three things at once, trying to absorb what they're saying, trying to look all around the screen at all the details, trying to concentrate on Hans Zimmer's score at the same time. I need to see it a couple more times, I think.
Yeah, that went by really, really quick. What about you, Garin? Your overall impression of what you saw?
Yeah, I think I tweeted out that it was a visceral and an immersive experience in a way I did not expect at all. So for me, because I've read the book so many times, and I'm very conscious of what the storyline is, I was really excited to see that I felt like I was watching this experience and these characters for the first time. There's a sequence that we can talk about later where I know exactly what's going to happen, but my heart was just pounding out of my chest. I was like, are they going to make it? And I thought, that is a huge win for Denis, because I know this story better than most people, and I was completely in it, and I was completely absorbed and connected to the characters and what was happening in that particular segment of the story. So I was just thrilled. I just thought the way he's going to do this is a way that I think is not only going to be exciting and is going to make even a bigger Dune fan out of me, but it's going to connect people. My 15-year-old son, I asked him as we walked out, I said, so, he didn't know anything about the story. I'd never told him about the basics of the story. And I said, what was your overall feeling or reaction to that? And he said, I totally understood what was happening, and I totally want to see that movie.
Nice.
And I thought that was a huge win, because, I didn't want anyone coming out of there confused. And I loved it. I thought it was a great experience.
Great. Simon, any other thoughts?
I agree with, it felt like, and I know what scene you're talking about, and we'll get to that scene. And it was just, obviously, I know character A and B are going to be around, but it's just getting to that point where I was like, oh, are they going to make it? And how certain stuff also happens in that scene, and just the quality of detail, just even in the little stuff. And we'll talk about one of my favorite little details. I was like, oh, so sweet. And I was just taken away. And again, very much like your son, my girlfriend, knowing nothing about it, just hearing me say random words around the house, was like, okay, now I'm intrigued. I want to know more. And I feel the opening was done perfectly for old fans, new fans, and anyone that's ever been curious about Dune.
I agree.
It gives you the bullet points. This is where the world is. This is what's going on. Awesome. Let's go from there. Yeah,
and to give context to my my view. Like, so I'm someone who's read the book multiple times, like since I was in primary school. I've like watched the David Lynch film. I've seen the miniseries. I've read a lot of the like expanded books as well. So it's a world that's really familiar to me. And the impression that I came away with was like, I'm seeing something on screen, and this is Dune, but at the same time, it's a really fresh experience. Like I was feeling, like that there's a lot that was added to the story. So we'll get into that. There are some scenes in there that aren't specifically in the book. Like Frank Herbert had a very distinct writing style. Like sometimes he didn't go into much detail. Sometimes it was more about the dialogue. But I felt that the way that some of the scenes were expanded, like really added to the experience, and like really made this like a completely new experience in a positive way.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I did cry a couple times out of just joy. I was like, yes. Since 1984, since I was probably 6 or 7, I can't do the math right now, but I'm like, yes, this is what I want. This is when I imagine, when I fall asleep after reading Dune for so many times, this is the world I wanted to see, and this is the world I got. But you're right, it felt very familiar, but yet very different at the same time, like for the first time.
Yes,
so you cried. That's terrible wolf discipline.
Hey, I was trying to save the water, okay, but I couldn't hold on to my water. Just spoilers if no one knows that joke yet.
The feeling I kept having, even though I described how I had a full suspension of disbelief, I kept having this feeling like they're doing this right. I was like, you guys are nailing this, right? So just keep it up. It was fun to see.
Yeah, and there was this feeling because as we know, like at the time that the previous adaptations were made, there were all these limits with technology. Like if you look at the ornithopters in Lynch's Dune, I mean they're very different compared to what we're seeing now. So there was definitely that feeling that what we're seeing now is like the definitive like vision, potentially the best possible way that we can get the story of Dune onto the screen, like using all of today's state-of-the-art technology, and of course in IMAX as well.
Well, there's that, and also just I believe that Denis is a fan. I don't believe that it's part of the marketing. Oh yes, I've been a fan since I was a little kid. No, I believe generally when he's talking about it that he's passionate about it. I mean, even the Hans Zimmer stuff, you can tell Han is passionate about it too. It's not like, oh, okay, Warner Brothers, you want me to hit these bullet points? No, it comes from his heart.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So what I wanted to share was basically an overview, like what exactly did we see in this exclusive event, like because of course many people didn't have the chance to see this. It was like only in a limited number of countries. So basically the event kicked off, and we had an opening montage with Denis, all the different actors, basically like giving their thoughts about the movie, and in the meantime there was like behind the scenes footage being showed. We also had a quick appearance of Brian Herbert, who came on screen for a moment. And then was basically talking about one of the quotes that stood out for me was, I think, about from Oscar Isaac, and he was mentioning that this is a story about Earth and like about the clash of cultures. So that stood out to me. And then after that, we had Timothée Chalamet, who came on screen, and then he introduced, saying that we were going to get the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then of course there were cheers in our theater. So then we saw the first 10 minutes of the movie, and that really went by fast. And then after that, we had another montage, and then we had an interesting discussion between Denis Villeneuve and Hans Zimmer about the score, and like that was like a really candid discussion about like how they decided to work with each other. And of course, we got to hear some of the music, the soundtrack, what the influences were. And then finally, we had the release of the new trailer that now has been released on the internet, and everybody's had a chance to see it. So that was basically the structure of what we saw. And as I was saying, with the first 10 minutes of footage, it went by, but by really, really fast. Like just, I think I heard multiple people in the audience say, like, I want more.
You guys think that opening scene was 10 minutes? It felt so fast.
Yeah.
I think it was. I like how I got to know the characters in that, though, even though it was only 10 minutes. I felt like I got to know them as well as I could have in that short amount of time. So I appreciated that.
Marcus, can we talk about some of the stuff that we saw? Is it spoiler time or not yet?
So maybe before we get into spoilers, I'm going to be conscious that some people, they want to know all the details about what we saw and like what our impressions were, but some people maybe prefer to like remain as unspoiled as possible before the movie. So let's first discuss that first part of the section with the actors and the director talking, and then we'll give a cue saying like when the spoiler discussion is going to start, and then like if you really want to avoid any discussion of what's going to be in the movie, then that will be a good jumping off point.
In your recap of the event, I think you missed the Foctus scene. I don't think you mentioned that.
Oh yeah, exactly. So we saw an additional scene which was what we saw in the first trailer of the worm swallowing the spice harvester. Simon, so in terms of that first section, what were your thoughts, like hearing the director, the actors, the estate talking about the film and seeing that behind the scenes footage?
I was excited, and very much I was trying to pay attention to details, the scene, and just overall I'm like, yes, this is happening right in front of my eyes. I was like, I was blown away by it. I think it looked like they had a good time on the production also. And I agree with you. Oscar Isaac did say something that is what one of the many layers of Dune. It is very much about where we're at as a society, and it's very much about Earth and where we're heading and where we come from.
Yeah, it was great. Some of it sort of overlapped a little bit with the Colbert interview that we saw last year. So there was various clips and segments that we'd seen before, but a tiny portion. But yeah, I was the same as Simon. I was trying to concentrate on everything. I'm looking at details, and then I'm realizing I'm not listening to what somebody's saying because I'm focusing on some background action. But yeah, a lot to take in. And at the end of the event, someone shouted again, and I think everyone felt the same. You need to see that multiple times to absorb all the details. Yeah,
totally. Garin, did anything stand out to you in that first section?
I really liked how the actors, the cast, were making it clear to me that Denis really is a fan and always has been a fan. In fact, I don't know if it was Dave Bautista or someone said his fandom borders on obsession or something. And as a Dune fan, I loved hearing that, because I don't want to just think that I'm believing this claim that he's a Dune fan, but I want to have that even more confirmed. And because I care about this story so much, I want it in the hands of somebody who's going to do it justice and is going to put as much care and concern and attention to detail as I would want, because it means so much to me. So I actually really appreciated seeing Denis' face and, seeing his emotions around the whole thing and his thoughts, and then also hearing the cast confirm that. I appreciated that a lot.
Okay, so I think it's time to go into what we saw in the first 10 minutes of the movie. So there will be spoilers ahead. Of course, if you've read the book, you know a lot about what's happening, but there are some differences. So just be aware of that.
I must not fear, for fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear.
So the movie starts with something that's really new. So we have Chani who's narrating the opening. So basically, the movie starts out. We have the sands, and of course, before that, the most important thing that stood out to me is that we saw the name of the movie is Dune Part 1. So Simon, any thoughts on that?
I was a happy camper when I saw that. So I'm hoping that still sticks when it comes out theatrically and they don't digitally remove that. I was like, this is part one. Is it chapter one of the story? Like, are they going to break it down in the movie? Then I was like, no, calm down, Simon. It says part one. This is part one. Part two will get announced. Or as I'm saying, maybe it's already been filmed and they're keeping that super hush hush. But I was happy. I loved everything about it. And Marcus was just taking notes. He didn't even notice that the Warner Brothers logo was blue. And I was like, that little touch right there gives a special little warm feeling in my heart. And I loved that opening montage. I felt like it explained the world so much. And Zendaya, I'm going to be honest. All I know from Zendaya is the Spider-Man films. And I was like, I believe her. I believe who she is. And the way she said her dialogue, like, they've been here before I was even born. And I don't know what's coming next. I felt the fear when she said that. Like, what is coming to my planet? What is coming to my people? And you can tell she's been a warrior. She's been fighting this fight forever. And she has.
Garin, was that a surprise to you when you saw the title come on screen?
Yeah, but I was thrilled because to me, if looking at this from a business perspective, putting that up there is communicating something really important to not only those of us who are fans who were there, but to the rest of the world that this clearly is part one, and it felt to me like a commitment to part two. I realize the number crunchers at Warner Brothers may feel differently about that at some point, but I just believe it shows their willingness to be behind us as fans, and I really thought that little text was really important.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. I was surprised actually that even though they said it was the first 10 minutes of the film, I wasn't expecting to see the title cards for Warner Brothers and Legendary. I thought, maybe it wasn't really the first 10 minutes. Maybe there was like a little prologue before it or something, but no, it's like the proper 10 minutes. And not only did it say part one, but we also got to see the year of 10,191 on screen, which didn't have the AG after it. So I'm sure that will cause plenty of discussions in the forums, but yep, we know the year as well.
Yeah, and going to that opening narration, I think, as Simon said, like Zendaya delivered that perfectly. It was really heartfelt from the character, like of someone who's been living on the planet their entire lives. They love their planet, but at the same time they've been oppressed by the occupation of House Harkonnen, and how now it's basically from their perspective, House Harkonnen is leaving, and then House Atreides is coming in, but from their perspective, it's basically the same thing. It's going to be like another set of oppressors.
It can be completely worse. They might be like, okay, well, that was bad, but the way she delivers what's next is it going to even be worse than what we've experienced? The future is very scary for people that are oppressed because you don't know what you're going to get. And if you grow up and you're raised that way, you only know that. There is no hope.
One thing that impressed me as well about the opening is I've got a large collection of Dune scripts from multiple adaptations throughout the decades. And the opening of Dune has always been a problem for the scripts because you've got to address that world building. And normally they're addressing it, you know, like in Lynch films with the Emperor talking to the Guild, or there's the Emperor talking to a Senate with House Atreides and Harkonnen, or you've got something going on Caladan. Nobody has ever approached it from the point of view of the Fremen before. And I think that speaks volumes for Denis' vision of Dune, to start with the Fremen, and it's their world, it's their story, and it's very impactful and very surprising. I'm grateful to see that.
Yeah. I was actually just writing about that. You know, of course, this is going to be the story of like the great houses, nobles, dukes, barons, but it's also going to be the story of like the planet of Arrakis and its people. And I think that's like something that's very clear from the trailer that was released, and we'll get into that as well. Garin, what did you think about the decision for this opening?
I really loved the visuals of it. I was doing just a minor bit of analysis as I could hear Zendaya's voice and Chani describing what the planet means to her, and then showing the oppression of her people. But what I loved about it is instead of having it be this broad, expansive, here are the noble houses, and here's, you know, the way the 84 Lynch's Dune opens, I like how I very quickly, within seconds, I cared about these people. I cared about the Fremen, not even really knowing much about them at all. I mean, I do as a fan, but like my son, he doesn't know who these people are. But immediately I care about them. I can see they're fighting for their families and their lives and their home. And I thought Zendaya did a fantastic job. Like I think, Simon, you mentioned, I believed her right out of the gate. She suddenly became this figure of power really quickly. So it was an interesting choice, you know, like Mark said, to start with this, but I thought it accomplished so much in such a short period of time that it just connected my heart to these people and made me really care about not only the planet, but also the Fremen as a people. So I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I loved to see was when they were showing the Fremen resistance against the Harkonnens, how they were, you know, like attacking the spice operations. And Chani was there, like maybe even leading those attacks. I think that really added so much to her character, because in the book we don't really know much about her, like in the first section, except from the dream. She only becomes like an actual character in the second part of the book. And we've heard from the interviews with Zendaya herself that she was only in the film for a little bit, but it seems that, you know, we're already going to get to know her as a character from the opening, from those action scenes. So I think that's going to add so much to her character and make her like more three-dimensional, like as you were saying, like someone who you're really going to care about as the viewer.
You know, Marcus, if I can add to what I said earlier, is I love how Denis is he's so efficient in the writing and the cinematography of the story, because even Chani's description of the wind blowing across the sand, and sometimes you can see the spice. And I don't recall that from the book, but I think that's an incredible statement, because immediately as a viewer, I realize the sand contains the spice. This spice is something important. And then we learn pretty quickly what that is. So again, without, you know, paragraphs of dialogue, in just mere seconds, it establishes, you know, there's more going on in this planet than just appears to be sand. Sand can just be this annoying, you know, just irrelevant thing. But on Arrakis, this contains the spice, which is the most valuable thing in the universe.
And that scene, I feel it's so crucial, like you're talking about how you see the sand, because in the scene we see later with Paul, we see that sand show up again, and not like. So, is it okay if I spoil the scene that we're talking about with Paul later on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like when he starts smelling the spice for the first time, it's very much, whoa, I'm experiencing something because of this right now. It's not like the David Lynch movie, like, oh, I smelled spice. Oh, it smells different. Like, no, this is like really, okay, it's part of Arrakis. It's part of the culture. It's part of who these people are.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting the perspective of the spice as something, even a thing of beauty or something that has that effect. Whereas in the other adaptations, the focus was always on, this is a resource thing. So that definitely adds more dimension, more perspectives to what the spice means to the native people as well.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
Marcus,
that's one of the things that this film is an adaptation, and that's what I think everyone's got to remember. So, the Lynch had his adaptation, which people complained about various bits, and the miniseries had their adaptation, which tried to be more faithful, but again they added more Irulan into that, and more Emperor scenes into the miniseries. But again, Denis is doing his adaptation, so it's not going to be a literal description and visual of the book, scene for scene, word for word, but it's taking those themes and putting them on the screen, and that's what we need to see the importance of spice, not necessarily be told it. And yeah, it's a fantastic opening.
Hey, Marcus, I wanted to also mention in that opening sequence with Chani and the Fremen, I thought it was an interesting choice to start the movie off with some warfare and conflict, because it's very clear what's happening in that sequence, and I obviously that is something that's very appealing to moviegoers, right? Because it's action, it's battle, it's war. But I really actually thought that really drew me in, because it's like, here I see these people fighting against the oppressors, but then they launch these, incredible like heat-seeking missiles or something that just takes out a whole platoon of Fremen. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like these people are really oppressed. I mean, they're fighting for everything, but they're getting wiped out by one salvo, So I thought that was an interesting choice again, to start with this conflict. But that's good storytelling. That really pulls people in when people are fighting for their lives, instead of just an overview of, okay, we have this really important resource on this planet. The Emperor wants to control it. The Harkonnens control it right now. There's different ways, like Mark was saying, to convey the same story. So Denis' adaptation is bringing in elements of action, warfare, spirituality. I just love the combination of how he tells the story.
Totally. And then that contrasts with the next scene, which is where we leave this harsh reality of the everyday life on Arrakis, and go to the planet of Caladan, the ocean planet, where it's peaceful. We see that scene of the stormy seas, and then we go into the Castle Caladan, and then we're basically having like this breakfast where Paul is sitting down with his mother, Lady Jessica. What was your impression of that table scene, Mark?
I loved that scene. I absolutely loved it. So when Jessica asks Paul to use the voice on her, and he sort of gives a half-hearted attempt, and she tells him to step up his game. And then there's a beautiful moment where he just concentrates, and we see the wind chimes move, and we see this portrait of Paulus Atreides, I'm guessing, on the wall, and there's a little abstract model of a bullfighter and a bull, and just those little beats and that calmness, and that's something you'd never see in The Rise of Skywalker in a million years. Just that little moment to breathe, the atmosphere, and then the voice kicks in, which I'm sure we were all waiting to hear what the voice sounded like. So, what were your thoughts on the voice?
So, Mark, if I can interrupt really fast, that scene that you're talking about, seeing the painting, that kind of also looks like Patrick Stewart a little bit. Let's be honest. And the little maquette and all that, that's the scene I was saying that I love the little details right there. If you know what that is, great. If you don't, then don't worry about it. It just brings another layer. And as much as I love Star Wars, I consider the Rise of Skywalker as it doesn't exist in my head. I keep forgetting it was ever made. And so in my life, my favorite fandom are Dune, old school Ninja Turtles, and Star Wars. But the Rise of Skywalker does not exist in my head. But you're right. And was I the only one that felt like that scene between when she says use the voice and when he actually did the voice felt long but short at the same time? Like you felt the tension, like what's it going to sound like, what's going to happen, like what is next, what's the next emotion that we're going to get from them.
Yeah, I love that. I love the what you're talking about, Marcus, about the breathe. Denis allows the scene to kind of play out a little bit so that we feel the emotions. And I loved the interaction between a teenager and a mother who wants the best for his son. And, she's explained to him that, you have to put on your proper dress today for the field ceremony and everything. And he's like, do I have to do that? But it's not in a sort of whiny, Luke Skywalker kind of a way. It's like, it felt like what a real teenager would say. And then, I want you to use the voice. I'm too tired. I loved the little writing details that made it feel real, like a real mother and a real teenager talking in the morning about life and about, struggles. And I just thought it was, and I loved how it was paced just right. It was never too slow. It gave it the space it needed to feel authentic.
Yeah, and I really liked how they portrayed the usage of the voice. It felt, you did feel like that mystical element, but it felt like realistic in the way, like the reactions, like how Paul was like giving his best shot at it, and then like Jessica's reaction, like was she going to be able to resist it or not, and then in the end, like a little bit of levity. No, you didn't get me. But yeah, I think that was really well done. And going back to that point, I love seeing all those details in the room, and that's come up in many of the interviews with the crew about like how they spend all that time to like make the sets perfect, like thinking about like what book is on the shelf, like what the floors and the carpets look like, and the painting of their ancestors. So it really added a lot to the atmosphere, and there was just so much to take in just that one short scene.
And just while we're talking about the voice, at the very, very start of the 10 minutes, there was like a little caption that said memories of voices and memories from the deep or something like that. I can't quite remember what it said. And there was like an alien voice behind it. Did you get that on your show?
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember it too, but I don't remember exactly what it said. And I was like, that's weird. But not thinking about it until right now.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it said, but I couldn't figure out if that was like meant to be the voice or a vision, because he can't later on he hears stuff and you don't quite hear it, or if it's meant to be a guild navigator or what. But it sounded very alien, almost like the aliens from Arrival.
It's all connected. It's the Villeneuve universe.
Yeah, and then Yeah, and I think that's what we saw. Like also in the additional scene that we saw about the teases of Paul's prescience and his vision. So I do think like that there are going to be a lot of like hints earlier in the film, and that they're going to build up to those reveals later on. So after that scene, we had like a scene where Paul is basically he's looking at the hollow and doing a study of Arrakis, and there he's seeing the explanation. And what stood out to me is that like he was basically getting a different perspective of what we had just like heard a few minutes earlier in a narration. In this case, on the hollow, they're talking about the spice as a resource. They're talking about the Fremen as the dangerous natives and like savages. So it was really interesting to see that reversal, that different perspective that people are seeing, like of a planet that's so far away from them. Garin, what was your thoughts on the hollow scene?
Yeah, I loved it. I'll be honest. I was thinking last night about how Frank Herbert wrote these devices in his books called film books. Right. This is 1965. Right. Yeah. And kind of like Mark was saying, this is Denis' adaptation. So it makes total sense that he would then take something that's a film book, which in today's technology that just really wouldn't make a lot of sense to us and wouldn't be a fit. But to have it be this little device, sitting on the pillow, which is then projecting this hollow, I just thought, what a perfect choice, And then again, like you said, I loved that I'm getting the reinforcement about this planet. This is a planet that they're going to be going to, and Paul's learning about it, and I just, again, to me, that's attention to detail that really is meaningful. So, yeah, I loved it.
Simon, how did you like that scene?
That scene, and I don't know, especially at home, it made me feel once again, this is the scene. Like you said, it was a book. It was a projection. It wasn't a tablet. He could have easily, they could have made like a fake looking iPad and he could have been looking at that. And what I remember, and everything's kind of a blur because, seeing it just one time, I don't even think he's looking at a tablet. I think he's reading from a physical book, which is so crucial in Dune. And when you know about the lack of technology in the Dune universe, it was beautiful. And like we were talking before the show, it wasn't even like an English alphabet that he was looking at. It was kind of an Egyptian or Arabic alphabet. And it was beautiful. And I was like, just show me more of the little instruction manual about the still suit. Like, I wanted to see more of that. I know there's an art book coming, and I really hope we get a little bit more of all those little details. And that's just maybe me being the graphic designer, but I'm like, show me more of that. Show me the world around.
And Mark, thinking about like maybe the previous adaptations, like what was your impression of this scene compared to how this has been handled in the other previous movies and TV series?
Yeah, just echoing what everyone else has said. If Lynch's film book is a chunky iPad, basically, and to get away from that, and as Simon said, you've got that dichotomy of futuristic hologram and a physical book, and you've got those two things working together in harmony, and I really, really like that use of modern futuristic technology and technology that goes back thousands of years. And Simon, you saying you want to see more of that in the art book? There is a limited edition art book coming out, which will have a copy of the Fremkit book, which I'm assuming will be very similar and have, that alphabet or the Fremen alphabet in there. So it's going to be expensive, but if you will be able to get a copy of that, hopefully.
So my PayPal is, no, I'm just kidding. I take Venmo, or you can just order it. I'll send my address over. No, I know, trust me, it's something I'm like, ooh, do I really want this? And do I really not say I'm just going to eat ramen for a month or so just to get that book? But I've already pre-ordered the one from my Amazon, the art book that Denis' wife worked on. As soon as Marcus told me about it, I was like, send me a link, and pre-ordered.
Yeah,
And the alphabet and the languages in the film were created by David Peterson, who written several books. He worked on Game of Thrones as well. He did the language for that. So he's got a book called The Art of Language Invention, which covers his process. So in Star Wars, the Arabic alphabet it's English, but you just swap letters around. He actually creates proper languages. So it will be very interesting to hopefully hear a little bit more about that after the movie comes out.
As a font nerd and as a typeface guy, I need to know the name of that book, and I need to order that book. And I love that it seems like they got a font designer and someone that also understands how languages work. All right. Well, I'll be editing this video so I can freeze frame it and order it from Amazon.
Yep, it's The Art of Language Invention.
So I'll include that in the show notes as well. Yeah, and I think in terms of like the book, the art book, the Art and Soul of Dune, like the regular edition, it's really reasonable price. Like from what I've heard about the contents, I think right now it's just $38 on Amazon in the US, and I guess in Europe it will be a similar price. So yeah, I would, from what I've heard, totally worth it. Recommend a pre-order. In terms of the limited edition, so is that the one that you've seen, Mark, or have you just seen pieces of it?
I've just seen pieces which the publisher accidentally put on their website and took it down after I'd seen it. So, but hopefully that should be announced soon. I'm hoping, like last year when the trailer came out, we had a flood of product announcements, and I'm hoping that we'll get some more product announcements later today or maybe tomorrow. And fingers crossed that might be one of them. But I've got no inside information on that. That's just me wishful thinking.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and so thinking about the next scene that we saw. So that was when we saw the Imperial ship, which was arriving on Caladan. And that was just the ship itself was an impressive sight. So it was like a gigantic circular thing that was descending, and that reminded me a little bit of Arrival, like the. Mark, what did you think about that ship from?
Yeah, that was great. I'd heard rumours that there was going to be an Imperial ship arriving at Caladan, but it wasn't clear if that was an old version of the script or what. So to actually see that on the screen and realise that the rumours were true, that was fantastic. And again, it's a scene not in the book at all, but sets up, some beautiful play between Leto and Gurney. The look between the Bene Gesserit and Jessica and Paul, and there's a lot that's unsaid in that one scene. Just when Jessica realizes that the Bene Gesserit's got a bead on Paul, which I guess will develop further in the scene.
Yes. So, what were your thoughts when you saw that ship descending?
So my first thought was, it's so interesting because I didn't think about Arrival, but I thought of the cover of Chapter House for a while, that round circular, and I was like, more references that the art department and Denis is pulling from. And you're right, there's so much body language in that scene, and you can feel the tension, and maybe because you know what's going to happen with certain characters, but I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And it felt, there's where the IMAX experience really takes in also when it lands. You can see the size of Caladan. You can see everything that's going on. You can tell this is a big celebration. And I also love just Oscar Isaac, like, we're done? Okay, we're good? Can we move on? Like, I don't want to be doing this right now. This is not what I want to do. But seeing it is just so beautiful. And Caladan really makes me think of the Pacific Northwest. when I look at it up here in Washington area.
Yeah, and then after that we had the guildsmen, and then coming out of the ship, as well as the Imperial Herald of the Change who was arriving. What were your impressions of that scene, Garin?
Well, again, a shout out to IMAX. I loved the weight of the ship landing on the surface of the ground, and the the feet just collapsing down, and just feeling the power and the weight of that. I loved that. And then the way the massive plank cascades down, and so just the scope and the size of this whole interaction between these characters. I loved the background. It also reminded me of the Northwest in the background, with the beautiful trees and mountains. What I love about what you were referring to, Simon, the unspoken body language and tension between Jessica, Paul, the Bene Gesserit. What I love about that is, to someone who doesn't know the story the way we do, they realize something is going on there, but once they've seen the movie 4 or 5 times, or they've then read the book, then they will be able to fill in all the details of what's actually being thought of and communicated mentally or emotionally between these characters. And I love how Denis allowed that space to be there, because for me, someone who knows these characters so well, I was putting detail in there in my own imagination as to what Jessica was thinking, and the tension, and what she actually knows at that stage of the story, and what the Bene Gesserit know, what Paul knows, what Paul doesn't know. So I just think that's masterful storytelling, and that scene really showed that well.
There's something, so a little background about me. I went to film school, and there's something that's always been known about film. You can turn off the sound on any movie, and if you can tell what's going on without any dialogue, that is great filmmaking. That's why some of the early Chaplin stuff is amazing when you look at it still to this day. And that's where you feel the tension without any of those characters saying a word. And you're right. Hopefully the average viewer will go back and go, okay, well, now I'm interested. I'm going to go watch this again, maybe even on HBO Max, or even, they'll go back to a theater, or the goal is they'll pick up the book, right? That's the goal in the long run. But you feel it as someone that will go back and watch it a second time and be like, oh, yeah, that makes more sense why they shot them, not just showing Jessica and another lady. You're like, okay, who cares, right? But if you feel it, you're like, okay, something's happening here. What is it? It's very much going back to Star Wars with Anakin seeing Palpatine for the first time. In the back of your head what's going to happen, but it's creating that tension.
Yeah, and looking at the scene, I feel it's one of those, what I mentioned earlier, it adds like so much context to the story of the book, because this scene isn't in the book. Like at the beginning of the book, we know that that House Atreides has been mandated to leave Caladan, and they're going to Arrakis to take over the spice production. That's going to be their new home, and they're leaving what they're leaving behind. And with this scene, it's basically it's all a formality, right? Because beneath all of that, you know that House Atreides, they have to leave the planet, and they have to do what the Emperor wants. But still, you have that person who's what they call him, the Herald of the Change, and he's basically coming there. They're making like a whole ceremony about it. Like House Atreides, will you accept the Emperor's orders to go on? And then Duke Leto, he has to sign the paperwork. And you have those scenes, as several you were mentioning, like between the different characters, about how they know that this is all like an affair to show like how much the guild had to spend to bring all these navigators here. So you have all that discussion. So that I felt that added so much to the characterization, and already like made you get to know several the House Atreides characters before they start on their journey.
You know, Marcus, I
liked,
love. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say I liked when Thufir was calculating. He went into Mentat mode, and his eyes rode in the back of his head.
Yeah, I love that as well. That was a really interesting, again, an adaptation of establishing that this is a human supercomputer. You know, I loved that. The other thing I really liked about that scene was, you know, Oscar Isaac is such a well-known actor now, but compared to, you know, some of his roles, you know, as Poe Dameron in Star Wars, who is, you know, a little bit of almost a Han Solo type of a character. I loved how Oscar Isaac just immediately exuded this weight and authority, and I mean, I believed him right away that he was Duke Leto. I was right in it. Just his stare and, you know, sort of that hawk-like features of that Herbert describes. It was so apparent. He was so hyper focused on what this was, but yet he wanted it to move forward. He's like, okay, let's go here. So loved that dynamic of his performance.
The feeling I've always got from Leto is he understands who he is, he understands where he comes from, but he doesn't care about the day-to-day political stuff. And you get that very much in that scene. Like, okay, so we're finished also. And I think it's also talking to the audience like, okay, so now we set up everything. You know what's going on again. They're taking over this planet. It's official. We've shown you, the dog and pony show. Let's move on with the story. That's why I felt like also for the audience being like, okay, now we're going to really get into the meat of the story.
Yeah. And there's quite a few jokes as well throughout the trailer and the preview. So it seems like it's fairly light-hearted in places.
And it should be. Did we get every House of Atreides there? I don't think I saw Duncan.
Duncan was there.
Okay, which also makes sense for later on why Duncan is missing. Good.
Yeah. And of course we did see more of him in the trailer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, what did you make of the interactions, like those looks between Reverend Mother Mohiam and Lady Jessica?
I don't think that was Mohiam. I think that was the other actress that was cast as a Bene Gesserit that was announced early this year. It could with the veil, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But I think she's perhaps there as a bit of a spy, just to have a double check before reporting in, and the Reverend Mother comes to have a good look at Paul.
Yeah. So then we'll get the Ganja Bar scene like after she arrives, coming after that.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that we were going to get the Ganja Bar scene, and when they set the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, we're going to get the Ganja Bar scene, but I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad they kept that also for the feature film.
Yeah, I really like how they've taken the time to show Cal, then show what the life is like there, show the different characters, the interactions between them. I think that really added a lot. It like at the end of that 10 minutes, it just ended and it was like, what, that was already 10 minutes, but there was a lot there.
Well, you know what they say, time flies when you're having fun. So there you go.
Yeah. So that was the end of the first 10 minutes, and then after that we got a scene that's going to be from later on in the movie when House Atreides has already arrived on Arrakis, and they're going out for their first journey in the ornithopter to see the spice production, and we already discussed that earlier. Starting with you, Garin, what did you think of that scene and potential some of the differences from what you were expecting?
So the scene with the spice harvester to me was where I got super excited that this is going to be done right. because that is such an iconic scene and such a visual scene in the book. It's the first experience we see where we have an interaction with these massive creatures, and to understand the scale of these sandworms. What I loved most about it is it took this scene that I know almost frame by frame, paragraph by paragraph, and I was completely taken out of my foreknowledge. I was nervous the whole time. I had sweaty palms. My heart was pounding, and just the sound of the ornithopter wings, the configuration, the way it felt so natural, the way the ornithopter was being flown and driven, by Leto, and it just, I mean, the CGI is just amazing. I couldn't believe how cool enough for me. That's actually how I always envisioned the Spice Harvesters, is just exactly like what they've done there. And so to see that in a way that looked 100% real and authentic to me, I couldn't get enough of it. So the sound of the ornithopter wings and just the tension and the pacing, and then again, what I really loved, and this is not in the book, but having Paul have that experience, that episode where he gets overcome with the spice, he starts to feel this prescience ability that he doesn't really know he has at this point very well, and yet he almost gets left behind. I thought that was brilliant storytelling, because not just, hey, we got to save these spice harvester workers, and it shows that Duke Leto has a heart, right? It establishes so much more by having Paul get overcome. He's down on his hands and knees. Gurney has to run out and grab him and save him. To me, that's the same level of expansion and magnification that, to just use an example, I think Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. He took it in a way that, yes, it's literal, but he expanded it and magnified it in a way that even makes it more engaging. And I just, at the end of that scene, I mean, people were cheering, and I just sat there just trying to catch my breath. I just loved that scene.
Totally. Yeah, let's switch to Simon.
I agree. It's definitely one of those scenes, like we said early on in the show, we know what's going to happen, but you're on the edge of your seat the whole time. And I love that Paul, I mean, as far as we know, that's the first time he really smells the spice or anything. And it's going back to the opening credit, not the opening credit, but the opening scene with Shawnee talking about the spice and how it's part of the universe. And it was done perfectly. And once again, the scope of the IMAX showing this little dragonfly that my girlfriend called them little dragonfly, like in this big epic scope. And it is exactly what I imagined. I also kind of got a Dune 2000 vibe from the game, the design of them. But, that might be just me playing that game the other day. But it was just, it's perfect. It's the small details. And it's a lot of the scenes that we saw in the original trailer from last year, with Paul's foot landing on, the sand the first time, him touching the sand and really looking at it. It's perfection. Like, all I can think of during this whole entire event was merci Denis. Thank you, Denis. Thank you for this. Thank you for making this fanboy, and I'm sure fanboys and fangirls all alike that have loved this so much in their lives be exactly what we imagined. And I was worried for Paul at one point, and I love that he even said, I hear your footstep, old man. Like, he talking to himself, it seems like, but he knows Gurney's coming to save him.
Yeah, and Denis actually had an introduction to that scene, and he was talking about the experience of how this scene is about Paul, who he's touching foot on the desert for the first time, and he has that connection. And I think that was like a added a really interesting dynamic to that scene. Mark, there was one other difference in that scene and how it played out. So what did you think of that difference, and like what did you think of the scene overall?
Yeah, I love the scene. Just going back to what Simon said about I hear your footsteps, Old Man. I saw someone on Twitter speculating, is he talking to Shai Hulud there, Old Man of the Desert?
Yeah.
So, or is he talking to someone he's seen in the future? We'll find out, I'm sure, but might not be what it seems.
Yeah, that was actually my first thought, yeah.
So the surprise for me was, worms coming, call the carry-all, and we've read it in the book, we've seen it in the movie, we've seen it in the miniseries. The carry-all doesn't turn up, but it does. And it's like, okay, is it going to blow up? Is it going to get shot down? What's going to happen? And we see that it can't grab onto the harvester correctly. It's broken or being sabotaged or something. So that was a surprise, which I love to see. It's not just a story that we're seeing; the surprises in there. And so when Leto says we've got to rescue them, the Fopter wings fold back, and they're just like dive bombers at that point. Some fantastic flying and CGI in there.
Well, the flying's going to be awesome. Come on, it's Paul Dameron. He's the best pilot in the galaxy.
He's a spice runner as well, isn't he?
Yeah. Which is even more funny. When I remembered that about the Rise of Skywalker, I was like, that's funny. But once again, it's something we're familiar with a little bit of new. And that's what makes it intriguing for fans. You get something that we love and cherish, and then we get a little bit of turn, but it works. It's just the perfect blend.
Yeah. I did notice that all the spice miners seem to have an English accent, or was that just my imagination?
I think that's you.
Any final thoughts on that scene?
Hey Marcus, I have another thought. I've recently been watching some trailers in my home theater for the new Top Gun movie. I have such a fascination with fighter aircraft, and I thought the feeling of being the shots inside the ornithopters, the scenes of them kind of going around the audience, and I just thought there's so much attention to detail to like the weight and heaviness of these vehicles and these aircraft. And I just thought stuff like that, that's what takes you out of your present experience. That's what transports you to another world, is all those details. And it's the sound, the image. But, to me, because I've always loved that scene from Lynch's Dune as well. But I mean, it's just 1,000 times magnified in intensity and overall experience compared to what David Lynch did. So if there's more to come like that Spice Harvester scene, this movie's going to be a huge hit.
Yeah, totally.
I like the bit as well when the worm's coming and it almost like it aerates the sand. And they start to sink into the sand, almost like quicksand or something. I love that detail.
Yeah, it felt like an ocean of sand in a way. The way it was moving, almost like water. Yeah, yeah, and then we of course we don't see the whole worm in this scene. We basically see the worm's mouth as it comes to swallow up that massive spice factory. So we get an idea of the scale. But it's as we know, it looks like the big scenes with where we see the full worm, that's going to be coming later in the movie. So then we had basically that scene ended, and then we got a montage like showing some different images. Like we got to see that photo again of like the Baron and Piter and some other scenes. We also saw. I think that was a scene with the starter car with where they're getting the blood on them, and then we had that discussion between Denis Villeneuve and Hans Zimmer about the score. So we'll start with you, Simon. What was your takeaway from their conversation?
I'm so excited about that score. It's once again, it's two people that love the property, that love Dune, and that score blew me away. And I know we've been hearing one of the few things we've been hearing about this production is about the score. Hans Zimmer's music is something that you need to experience, and I'm glad I got to experience it. I don't know what IMAX is. I don't know if it's Dolby Digital, THX, whatever it was, but it was perfect. It it gives it another world feeling, and I like how he talks about how he doesn't want to use the same instruments for every, you know, every planet, every universe. I rewatched the Jovanovski documentary the other day, and I loved how he wanted to use like Pink Floyd for one, and all that. I was like, okay, well that's over the top. But with Hans Zimmer composing different sounds, and one of my biggest complaints ever is, and I'm sure fanboys are going to hate me, I'm not a big John Williams fan because I feel like John Williams is pretty much copy and paste on a lot of his music. And Hans Zimmer is always someone that's trying to reinvent themselves. It's very much that evolution, evolve or die, and he still makes music and people still want to work with him because he's evolving as an artist. So yeah, can I order my vinyl? I'm gonna be that hipster that's gonna be like, I want the Dune album on vinyl, but I'll also buy it on iTunes.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that comment. What Hans was saying about these are cultures in like a faraway universe. This is happening like 20,000 years in the future. So why should the music sound like the music today? I know that sometimes people have a tendency to compare like things with our modern day experience. But the reality is this is completely different. So I love how they had that idea. Okay, we're going to create those sounds. Like what would the sounds be like for these cultures that are living in this this sprawling feudal society in a universe with millions of worlds. Garin, what was your thoughts when you were hearing them discuss?
Yeah, I love to see interaction like that between two incredibly creative professionals. I like how they were so deferential to each other. They were both so excited to work with each other, and that Hans has been a fan of this book. So again, if you're going to work on a project, you want people to be passionate about the source material. So what a great selection to have someone as well known and as established as Hans Zimmer do the music. I actually, when he was explaining that he would be creating, that he created new instruments and wanted it to be a very unique and unfamiliar kind of a score, I'll be honest, I got a little nervous because I'm like, I don't want this to be strange or weird or distracting, because as I'm imagining a lot of the science fiction movies that I love, they do have the traditional, John Williams type of a score. I mean, that just kind of is something we've culturally gotten into over the last couple of decades. So I was a little nervous about that, but as I experienced it and thought about it again, I thought, but wait, I wasn't distracted by it. It felt appropriate, but it helped again with that transport out of my world experience. So a little hesitant, a little concerned about that, but as I kept hearing it and as it went into more detail about the music, the score, I thought, again, what a great creative decision.
Mark, in terms of those new sounds and the vocals that we hear, what was your impression?
Yeah, well, I was a little disappointed that Toto didn't come back to do the score for this one, but Hans Zimmer will do. So I think Hans Zimmer turned down Christopher Nolan's Tenet to do Dune, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he's clearly a fan of Dune, and yeah, the ethereal voices and the deep bass or percussion or whatever instruments he's created just sounded fantastic. And I think, as I said earlier, you know, half the time I'm trying to focus on the picture, and the other half trying to take in what the score is doing. But yeah, I'll definitely be buying that on CD.
Hey, Mark.
And yep.
Oh, sorry, my camera.
Oh, very nice.
The vinyl from last year's record day, and it's actually orange.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, I couldn't get that. It was like all the sites were crashing left, right, and center as I was trying to order it. So.
Oh, I'm lucky. There's a little independent record store not too far from me, and I called them. I'm like, "Hi, can you reserve the Dune soundtrack for me?" Like, well, it's record day exclusive weekend. I'm like, "Okay, what time do you guys open?" I was like,
"Were you there 7 hours before?"
No. I had to work the night before, and also it's only a 5-minute walk. So,
I want to live where you live. It's like 5 minutes walk to a record store, 20 minutes drive to an IMAX. It's
no, it was a 2-hour drive to an IMAX.
Oh, 2-hour drive. All right, sorry. It's
yeah.
But to be fair, that was because they only decided to have it in that one location in the whole state. But yeah. Yeah. So that was like the final segment that we saw before the trailer actually hit. But before that, I did want to touch on one thing that I had noted down, like about the previous scene. Yeah, like I was overall really impressed with the performance that we saw from Timothée Chalamet for especially for that sandworm scene, because we see, like, you know, first he's getting off the ornithopter, and he's like has a really commanding presence, and you know, he's telling the miners, you know, like, go to that thopter, and you know, he's really in charge. And then there's that scene with the vision, and then, like, you know, he's lost control completely. You know, I thought that was like an absolutely amazing performance. I think if it's like that the whole film, you know, I can see some awards in this future. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on any of the content outside of the trailer? I'll just start with you, Garin.
No, I like what you said about the actors' performances. I know you can never choose a perfect cast because people have such strong opinions about ethnic background or racial decisions, but I just feel like the casting in this was done so well. You know, I realize these are particularly the main lead characters are very well known, and that's filmmaking, right? That's what Hollywood does. But I think in terms of matching the right personality, the right even physical look of these characters to these characters that I've known for so many years, I just thought was so well done. And you know, the gender swapping thing, I think that's great. Again, it's an adaptation. I have no issue with that. In fact, I'm supportive of those decisions. But I just love seeing all the different skin tones and all the different, you know, different accents even. I like that. To me, that feels good. And Timothée Chalamet, who I wasn't as familiar with because I haven't seen as many of his movies recently, but to choose someone who has sort of a smaller, thinner stature makes him feel younger. And I always had trouble with that. You know, I still love things about Lynch's Dune, but you know, Kyle MacLachlan is 23 years old or something like that when they're shooting that film. So
he looks 45.
Yeah, it didn't work for me in knowing that Paul Atreides is a teenager. You know, he's like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
But I like how Timothée Chalamet has that feeling. I mean, that scene where he has his shirt off, which I know, you know, the fangirls will go crazy over, told me this is a young person. This is a kid, you know. And so to then have someone of that with those kinds of acting chops, which he does, he's an amazing actor, to carry this film and to give Paul the weight and authority that this character needs. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about all the right components are in place for this to succeed. Someone on Twitter was asked, who hadn't seen the exclusive screening, was asking someone who had, what didn't you like about it? What didn't work? And I thought about that as it ended, and I thought, there's nothing that didn't work. Every component worked for me in a way that I couldn't be happier.
Nice. Okay, so what we'll do, let's do a quick round table. Your high level reaction to the trailer, which obviously was the final part of the event where we saw the trailer the first time in IMAX. So I'll start with you, Simon.
Beautiful. I can't wait to rewatch it a million times on YouTube. I'll probably give it a couple of thousand views just by myself. Can it be October 22nd already? Some of us have to wait, Mark. A little bit longer.
October 21st here.
Okay.
So we only get it a day before you, I'm afraid. So,
but still, you have time travel. You're ahead of us.
Yeah. Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I've had the trailer on repeat all afternoon as well. So trying to work with that playing in the background. Not quite sure how successful I've been, but yeah, great trailer. We've seen a bit more of the expanded world of Dune, a bit more of the Harkonnen, a bit more of the Fremen, a lot more of Cheney. So yeah, great trailer, and it seems to be being well received online as well, from what I can see.
Yeah. Garin, how about you?
Yeah, I was so enthralled with the footage that we saw at the IMAX event that the trailer was a little bit overwhelming to me because so much information is packed into those couple of minutes. But I did love how it expanded, it magnified, what people have seen up to this point. I think in terms of the effectiveness of a second trailer, I think it's gonna hit on all cylinders, because you're seeing more action, you're seeing more character development. You're just what they're doing, I think, with this trailer is they're just allowing you to peek behind the curtain to see that this is really a vast, detailed, sophisticated world, and that's what's going to make people want to go see this film. So I will watch it 15 more times today, and then share it with all my family.
Sadly, I have to edit a podcast, so I can't watch it on nonstop. Can I just make one comment about Timothée Chalamet really fast? What Gareth was saying about how bony he is. He's very mouse-like in a way. I'm just going to leave it at that. If you read the book, you know why that works.
Yeah, and going to Garen's last point about the trailer. So with the first trailer, you already had that, like, this is a film that's really huge scale, but potentially people who are new to it, like they're like, okay, well, what's this actually about? And I felt that's where the second trailer like really works well, because you do get that full narrative, including that narration with Chani at the beginning, where it's basically the beginning of the movie, where she's giving the introduction to the planet, the oppression. So you understand what's happening there, and then throughout the trailer you get to like that introduction to the characters. There's more dialogue. So I think certainly this is a more like story-driven trailer that I think will appeal to the broader audiences. And yeah, we're going to go into a lot more detail on the trailer in our next episode. So look forward to an in-depth analysis for that. So before we close the show, let me go do a round table. So Garin, where can people find more about you?
Yeah, so my website is dunecompanion.com. Spelled just like it sounds. And I love to write articles about the lore, analysis of the story, the characters, and then I also have a Twitter handle, which is also at Dune Companion. And I love to keep up with all the excitement and now at fever pitch, all the Dune excitement.
Thanks. And Mark, where can people find more about you?
I'm duneinfo.com and duneinfo on all the socials, so Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah, Simon, where can they find you?
Well, sadly, I don't have a cool Dune handle. I just have so my Twitter handle is SDAOUDI, just my last name. And I've been trying to be more active on Twitter, but like I said before, I'm more active on Insta. That's my jam.
Yeah, and for myself, Marcus, so you can find a lot of my articles on DuneNewsNet.com, and we're getting more writers who have been contributing regularly. So you'll see hopefully the volume of articles increasing, especially now over the summer that we're going to get tons of news. And you can also follow Dune Newsnet on Twitter and Instagram. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Hope you got a good impression of the IMAX exclusive event, and look forward to discussing trailer review next week. Thanks.
We hope you've enjoyed Dune Talk. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when the next episode drops. Stay tuned to DuneNewsNet.com and add us to your social feeds. Be the first to hear breaking news and reviews.